Yeah, no. So I think the future is cloud gaming. I would like to use it. It's still not available in Taiwan, but I can imagine, um, like, like Steam has the advantage where you can stream from your desktop to your iPad, but you have to keep your computer on, which I think what's the point that I just sit in front of my computer. But I'd love to get to the place where I can say, okay, I'm going to play games from my Steam library, and I can turn off my computer. I can get into bed, click on my iPad, and play Command and Conquer, play whatever the hell I want to play. And that's my goal for streaming. What do you think, Adam?
No, I think that cloud streaming will be eventually the future once we get to a point where infrastructure is able to support it. So, yeah, no, I agree. I think it'll go in that direction. Is it better? I don't know. That I think it's harder to say. As far as latency, you know, no matter how fast it gets, unless you're unless you're doing some sort of quantum entanglement that you can get instant, you know, feedback on both sides. It's always going to be faster if it's local. I mean, that's just the nature of distance, right? But yeah, it'll definitely get to a speed where I think for the most part we're not going to notice a huge difference. I mean, especially once you're able to do it at a speed where the latency is less than a frame rate refresh. If you can get a latency to be smaller than a frame rate refresh, you're not going to notice it. That's just not going to happen. So in that sense, definitely the future. I do kind of worry about though the idea with like right now we've seen it with the news with the PlayStation where they're shutting or what was it? They were taking away some of the PlayStation classics. So if you had previously bought PlayStation classics on the PS3 or the Vita, then they were canceling those licenses or they were not renewing those licenses. So that's one thing that people have been saying for a long time is when you buy digital, you don't own the game, you own a license, but that license, if they want, they can take that away. You don't actually own the game. And that's happening now where, if you, I don't think too many people are playing on the PS3 or the Vita too much very often these days. And maybe it was an error, I don't know, but if it gets to that point, then like with Game Pass right now, not every game is on there. And right now you have the option on Game Pass that you can buy the game, buy the license, and download the game yourself. But I mean, once everything goes online, basically everything's basically gonna almost have to be subscription based in a way, which means that if you're playing a game and it goes off and you're halfway through, that's what happened to me with Star Trek Discovery. I was about halfway through season 2, and then it went off Netflix, and it went to what is it on now? Paramount Plus.
Paramount Plus.
Yeah, we don't have Paramount Plus in Taiwan.
Yeah.
And I already have Netflix and Disney Plus and HBO, so I'm not subscribing to another one. So I'm just SOL. I can't finish it now. If I had been watching it earlier, I could have, but because I, jumped on it when I did, and because I was watching it in the way that I did, I just can't finish it. And that to me is a little bit worrying. Not like a oh my gosh, this is evil kind of worrying, but like, oh man, I'm not looking forward to that. So
Yeah, no, and you made a good point about licenses. Like the other big news this week was like Apple basically told App Store developers like if your game hasn't been updated in 2 years, it's off the App Store. And like I've had an iPad for a while, a good few years, and I remember I had an old like early '90s MechWarrior game on the iPad, and then they upgraded to like iOS 13 example, and they're like if you didn't upgrade to iOS 13, your game was not on the App Store. So I lost that game and a bunch of other games I had bought with my money. Um, and I've seen that, and then I guess with iOS 15, I've bought a whole bunch of games, like board games especially, that I know some of them have not been updated because there's no need to update a game. It's just like it's a companion app to a board game, and I can imagine some of these guys like, why are we going to pay an iOS developer $100 an hour to make us to update our app?
you're not
Just
even
kind of
updating it. You're just updating the license.
so it's not. I think that's definitely going to be a problem with streaming. I mean, the other side is one of the things I do like when it comes to online stuff is that every single iPad I have, as long as the games have been compatible, like if my iPad breaks, I don't have to worry I'm losing anything because
Oh yeah.
it's all logged to my iOS account, Steam as well, my Nintendo Switch. I love physical games like the next person, right? I love to keep the cases. Like I think Adam and I are that generation. Do you like to collect physical PlayStation games?
I haven't really done that since the PS3. If you look at my library,
I've seen them, right? And I realized like
yeah,
that you don't really like you're not like a collector person.
I no, I have a few cases for I have a few PS4 cases, but it's really if you look at my shelf, I have my shelf is filled with PlayStation 2 cases, and then I have a fair few PS3 cases, and then I only have a small handful of PS4 cases. And I haven't bought a game physical for PS5 yet, but I don't think there are that many PS5 games out right now that you can't just buy the PS4 game and upgrade for free. So,
Okay,
but yeah, I have a few. Like I have Death Stranding cases and a case for
that's
Death
interesting.
Stranding, and yeah. But yeah, I haven't bought physical in a while, and it's one of those things where I know the problem of it, and I still do it. You know, it's but yeah, it's funny to me in a way because when at the beginning of the previous generation, the PS4 and the Xbox One, was it the PS4 and the Xbox One? Yeah, PS4, Xbox One, and Xbox came out and they said we're going to do the always online thing, you know, where you have to check in every 24 hours, you know, and people just completely against it, hated it, and it cost them a lot, which was a big reason why the PS4 became dominant in that generation when Xbox had been dominant the previous generation. You know, just the way they kind of, and this happens all the time. You know, we saw when going into PS5, Xbox been learning from their mistakes, and PlayStation's starting to make some of those mistakes, and you know, it goes back and forth. But when you know people were totally against this idea, they're like, no, when I have my game, I want to be able to play my game. I don't want you to have to check in online every day just to be able to access my game to make sure my licenses are valid, right? But then moving into a streaming model, you have to log in every day or you can't play. So, you know, it's funny to see how totally against it everybody was. And then and I think I think Microsoft specifically was doing this where they were like, we know this is going to be the future and we know you're going to hate it now, but we're going to throw the idea out at you and then you're going to be angry and then in the future you're going to get over it and then you're just going to accept it. And you know, so I think in some ways it was one of those things where they didn't change their mind, where they were like, you know what, we were wrong, you know, we were wrong, we're sorry, we're gonna backtrack. It's just like, no, we're just gonna wear, you know, we came out too fast, we're gonna wear you down more slowly, but we're gonna continue doing what we were always planning to do.
You
So
make a really good point with that as well. It's like I was listening to a tech podcast a few weeks ago, and they were saying like one of the big things with Apple or Steve Jobs was that he said we're not going to build products for the consumer. We're going to make the consumer like our products, and that's what they did with the iPhone. And I think a lot of big companies have done that. Is to say, hey, this is what it is. You're going to like it,
yep.
and maybe you don't like it in the beginning, but now you do. And the other thing about streaming, I was thinking as well, it's kind of unfortunate, right? Like here in Taiwan, right? Even if, let's say, lo and behold, your internet drops, your cable has a problem, like you mentioned, your house, because you're in that nook and cranny and stuff, you sometimes have issues. Uh, but at the end of the day, we have unlimited 4G. You have unlimited 5G as well as in Taiwan if you pay the money for that, right? So even if you have limited 5G like I have, it just drops down to 4G, which is good enough to play games or log into your online service and do whatever the hell you want. But like in countries like where I'm from, South Africa, people still have limited bandwidth on their cell phones. I
Oh
don't know
yeah.
anybody who has unlimited cell phone internet. Even in England, my brother doesn't have that. So, I mean, like they're developing these services, but for the most part, I think you're pretty much stuck to first world countries being able to, not even that, is Asian countries where unlimited bandwidth is a must, that
Yeah.
you're able to sort of take advantage of streaming and stuff.
And even
So
then
it's,
they do weird stuff. I have a friend here who one time he what was it? I don't remember if it was on his phone or on his internet, but he was supposed to have unlimited internet, and then they came in and they said, "Oh no, you used up too much. You used up too much." You know, so I guess he was saying like, you know, I had been downloading some movies and you know from BitTorrents and whatnot, but not that many. But this was years ago, right? Where things like that could eat up your internet. And so they said, "Oh no, you used up too much, like way more than we were expecting you to. So we're adding these extra charges." And he was like, "Okay, well, I didn't do that. So what was, and they said, "Well, we can show you what it was. We can show you what everything was used on. We can show you where all that data was going." And he was like, "Okay, show it to me." And they printed it out, and it said internet, 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 internet. That's all it said. It's like, this is worthless information. You're saying I used, 20, I don't know, 6 terabytes of data. And then when I'm like, "No, I didn't." And they're like, "Well, we did. And we can show you right here what you were spending it on." And it's like, "Okay, what was it?" "Internet." It's like, well, what else is, what is data if not the internet? It makes no sense, So it was a really weird argument. But yeah, especially in like the States, if you have limited internet, and it's just, there's no way you're going to be able to, yeah, they're going to have to change infrastructure.
Yeah, like you mentioned, I remember Verizon. We had unlimited internet when I was living 20 years ago in Massachusetts, but it still had that, like you mentioned about your friend, fair use policy as well. It's like Verizon, like, okay, you're a terrible bandwidth user. We're gonna make you pay more money or slow down your internet or something like that.
Yeah, that was the whole net neutrality thing with the where they could throttle
Yeah.
certain things, right? So Microsoft could make a deal with or Sony could make a deal with one internet provider, and if you're using, so if you're a Sony person, you need to get this internet provider because they'll throttle Microsoft but not Sony. But if you're using Microsoft, you should get this internet provider because they'll throttle Sony but not Microsoft because they have deals with people, which is very unfortunate. But yeah, I think streaming's the future, but doesn't mean I have to like it. There are good things and bad things, so.